All right, I think we're live. Hey everybody, welcome to our first online info session. We are excited to meet you. We're excited to present a little bit about what Prenda is and what we're all about. I just want to introduce myself really quick. My name's Kalen Sharp. I've been working with Prenda for the last couple of years. I'm on the growth team, and we've been doing events like this all over the state of Arizona in various communities and lots of different venues. And we decided to try an online info session so that we could just reach people who aren't able to catch our live events and who want to know more about Prenda. So if you're watching on YouTube, the best thing to do to interact with us, if you look to the right side of the video, depending on what format you're on, if you're on mobile, it might look a little bit different. But there's a live chat box that you're going to want to watch and ask your questions in there. There's ways that you can, there's just a little field there where you can type in your question or what you want to say, hit enter, and I'll be watching that. I'll kind of be our MC for the info session today. I also want to introduce really quickly Kelly Smith, who's the CEO and founder of Prenda. You'll be hearing from him here shortly, as well as Rochelle Gibson, who is also on the growth team and is heading up an awesome team of recruiters and has talked to hundreds of parents and moms all around the state about what Prenda is. So I'm going to get started by kicking it over to Rochelle. And actually, I think we're going to do a little icebreaker, right, guys? Is that the plan? So for all of you, can you guys hear me okay? Okay. Just want to make sure that's working. So for all of you that are watching on YouTube, we'd love to hear your thoughts. The question that we came up with for today was, sorry, I've got some audio playing in my ear, trying to stop it. So the question we came up with that we'd like you to answer via the chat is, describe the moment where you realized that school wasn't working for you or for your child. Did I catch that question right, Rochelle and Kelly? So yeah. We've talked to parents all over the state about this. We'd love to hear your thoughts. So maybe just type in the comments in the chat. Describe the moment that you realized that school as it currently exists or is defined was not working for you or your child. We're gonna wait with some awkward silence while we see if we can get some conversations going. So it looks like we've got a few people in the chat. We've got Rain, Holistic Mama, and Lisa Costello. Good morning, everybody. It's probably a few seconds of lag from our broadcast to your seeing this, but we'll wait a few seconds for some responses to come in. Rochelle, you're a mom. Maybe talk to us about when you realized it wasn't working for your kids.
Well, that was really early on with my kids, and in the financial crisis of 2008, my husband's a builder. We got hit pretty hard, and I had been a stay-at-home mom and went back to teaching high school geometry. And my youngest was 3 at the time, and over the next year and a half, I was trying to figure out what to do for her care. And my kids were going to the local public school that we had chosen. We bought a house because it was in that school district. And when my daughter was a pre-K, my daughter that's just older than her, when my youngest daughter was a pre-K, my daughter just older than her was in 1st grade. And my youngest was going to a Montessori preschool. And I realized that my pre-K and my 1st grader were doing the exact same work. And I was like, there might be something I want to look at here. And so we shifted into a Montessori, a private Montessori, and just, had a lot of scholarship and a lot of sacrifice. So that happened really, really early on for me. And so Prenda, like, I got to see this and I go, this is what I've been paying $8,000 a year for, and it's free. And it's, in a lot of ways, there's some things that I like even better than what we've been getting. So.
Awesome, thanks. So we've had a couple of people. We've had Jessica Walker and Holistic Mama. And I apologize, Holistic Mama, if you have a real name. I don't know what your real name is, so I'm just going to use your handle on YouTube. So Holistic Mama says, when I was in elementary school, but realized it even more when my son started school. I've seen him go through the same struggles I did growing up. We've definitely heard that before. Jessica says, when the classes were so full that they weren't growing, data was more important than their actual learning. Another thing we've definitely heard a lot. And then Lisa says, when I was teaching my child more at home about what she learned during the day, and when the teachers told me I had no right to teach my child at home. So we'll have to add that to our list of
Wow.
crazy things we've heard people say. Rain also just said, when I realized he was learning more at home from a trip to the park than hours/days at school.
Yeah.
He also started having issues with his behavior caused by anxiety of the craziness.
Yeah.
Definitely things we've heard.
We hear all
cool.
of that.
Thanks you guys for kind of breaking the ice and helping us get to know you a little bit. It's tough when we can't see you face to face, but that's why we wanted to have a little discussion before we get started. So I'm going to just kick it over to Rochelle so she can start talking to you about what Prenda is and where we've come from, and I'll let her take it away.
Cool. So my name's Rochelle Gibson. I live in Mesa, and I heard about Prenda in November, and within a week of talking to Kelly, talking to Kelly's wife, and visiting a couple of classrooms, I pretty much instantly just went, this is it. Like, I've spent so much time in my life thinking about education. I was one of those weird kids that was homeschooled back in the 80s. I was the only kid in my town. My family were the only ones in our whole town that nobody had ever even heard of it, let alone would consider it. And so then I went to public high school and private university, community college, public university. And then my kids have been in every possible educational setting. I've taught in a charter school. I've taught in private and public environments. And I've done a lot of thinking about what drives kids and what makes them tick and how they learn. And so as soon as I heard this, it really blew my mind. And so within a week of kind of looking at it, I went to Kelly and said, I need to work with you in this and take this to everybody. At the time we had 30 students, and I could just see the demand, the need, the how cool it would be to hand over learning to a kid and what they would do with it. Because a lot of times we don't give them credit for we don't give them the credit they deserve as human beings who are, like, they're not ours to shape and form. They're ours to guide and mentor, and they have their own path. And I love that Prenda helps them find their path in a way that I've never seen anything happen educationally. So I'm going to go ahead and start a screen share. My tech people, make sure I'm doing this right. I'm pretty new at this stuff. Okay, we good?
Looks good.
Okay, thanks. So neighborhood school reimagined. I love the fact that it's a neighborhood school. One of the things that I've recognized about school choice, for example, is that oftentimes school choice leaves behind the people who need it the most. And there's a widening gap for kids, in lower socioeconomic situations and things like that. And that was one of the things that I loved, is that we stay in the neighborhood. We could take an adult. Anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. So let me talk about what our mission is. Empowering learners. So when we talk about empowering learners, there's a lot of thought and emphasis that's gone into this. We recognize that we're not creating them. They already exist. We're just giving them a platform where they can take that. And if you watch little kids, like 3 and 4-year-olds, and their curiosity, watch a 3 or 4-year-old at the park, a 2-year-old, and the things that they do, and then watch a 10-year-old that's at school, it's a very different feeling of what learning looks like. And so our job is to create a space for them to actually learn, not to deliver content to them, not to force them into anything, but to allow them the space to learn and encourage them to choose that. So I'm gonna pass it on to Kelly for this next couple of slides.
Yeah, thanks, Rochelle, and thanks everybody for being here. I just wanted to share a little bit about the Prenda Story and what we're all about. So I don't know, when I'm talking, it's probably cutting to my face. So maybe I need to share the same things for you guys to be able to see the slides. Let me share my screen and that should work just fine. Prenda got it started. I'm
Actually,
one of these.
sorry,
Okay.
real quick, Kelly, just so you know, it is still showing the slides, so you don't need to worry about sharing your own screen.
I won't share my screen then. I'm one of these people that, oh wait, is it still showing my screen?
I think I turned it off, so let me turn it back on.
Yeah, thanks for bearing with us, you guys. I'll start with just sort of me. I did not become an educator on purpose. I have always believed in education, but it sounds like somebody said they saw it in elementary school. I saw it in elementary school and high school, and definitely felt like, man, there's got to be a better way for learning to happen here. You guys, I'm so sorry. There's a vacuum. Hopefully you can still hear me. I'm in a hotel space, like a lobby. I sold a software business in 2013. And at that point, I felt pretty strongly about trying to do something that mattered for my community. So I went down to the public library and I opened what I called Code Club. I just started teaching kids computer programming. We put up posters around the neighborhood. Hey, come learn how to make a video game, learn how to make a website. If this is too distracting, you guys just let me know, Rochelle and Kayla.
I'm thinking let's not do the share and then we can see your face, and I think that will help. Can we see Kelly's face right now?
Yeah, I'm right. As I talk, I think it should show up. But can you even hear what I'm saying? I guess this is...
Yeah, we can.
Guys,
I can. You're good. Kaylin,
right.
Can you see Kelly's face?
Yes, yeah, it's fine.
Okay, perfect.
All right, so the story was, I started Code Club really as a volunteer initiative. My oldest son was 8 at the time, and I just felt like, hey, I'm gonna teach my kids to code, so I might as well teach other kids to code from the neighborhood. I had used computer programming for a lot of my career, so I felt like that was something I wanted to do. And what was interesting about it was kids would come and they would learn to code, and they really felt empowered and engaged through the learning. I basically learned 2 things as a part of Code Club. One was that that learning is a choice. So these same kids that I would see show up to Code Club, I knew them, I knew some of them, and I knew their struggles at school. They were getting into trouble, they were bored, they were frustrated, they were behind for many different reasons. They hated school, and yet they would show up to my Code Club and I would give them some prompts and some ideas and direction, but then they would take ownership of their learning and do amazing work with it. So they were able to put together really successful, learning, right? They were going and doing tutorials and learning how to build websites, and they were doing projects that were truly astonishing. And as I was watching that and comparing it in my head, I know what school feels like, and I know what this feels like, and it's a very different thing. And what I noticed at the core of all of that was this choice to be a learner, to think of yourself as someone that's capable of learning something, and then, the subsequent work that goes into it so that you're able to successfully be a learner. So that was kind of point number 1, is learning is a choice. And I watched many, many kids have that choice. We grew that Code Club to where I saw, probably personally worked with 2,000 kids at the library. And then we started supporting other libraries. We now have, there's a map on these slides, but we've kind of skipped off of it, where we have Code Clubs in 30+ states all over the country. And we're working with, close to 15,000 kids in computer programming. So that was kind of the beginnings of this. And as I was watching Code Club, I realized, okay, learning's a choice. And the second thing I noticed, and this was part of as we expanded, we would go to different libraries and we would find, a group of people that wanted to do Code Club, but we would have no expert in the room that could do it. Meanwhile, in other places, we did have experts, and we would put the experts in there. The experts did poorly. The librarians who just loved the kids and were able to kind of be humble and learn alongside them, they did amazingly well. And what I realized from all of that was that the public school system and sort of our traditional approach is looking for the wrong attributes, right? An adult can be super, super helpful in empowering a learner and helping a kid decide to be that, be a learner for life. But But many times, too many times, that's not what what the traditional system is looking for in the adult. And so what I said is, this is a little, deliberately edgy, but teaching is impossible. And what I mean by that is just if you've got a kid that doesn't want to learn and you're determined to force information into that person's head, it's not going to work. It's going to be this impossible thing. You can maybe get them to do some worksheets or to like regurgitate some stuff on a standardized test, but you can't get them to really get it or care about it or learn it unless they make that decision to be a learner. And so starting with Prenda, we looked at both of these things. Learning is a choice, teaching is impossible. And we said, what if school could be built on these principles, right? Like what if all of school was around taking that child at the center and inviting them to be a learner, to see all the benefit and fun that comes with engaging with the world that way, and then change the adult into a guide and a support for that learner, right? And they play a really critical role and an important role, but it's not about, kind of trying to push information. It's much more about like coaching and mentoring and guiding along the process. So this is what we learned from Code Club in the beginning. I had this moment where I talked to, some of my helpers and friends that were with me at the very beginning. And I said, you guys, we've been doing coding, but what if all of school could be this way? And it was a humbling kind of realization that, math and science and social studies and English and personal finance and entrepreneurship and whatever you want kids to learn, you can learn all of these things and more through a very different approach to school. And that was the beginning of it. We'll talk, Rochelle's going to explain kind of how we structured the model, but I wanted you to kind of have that story as to, the beginnings of Code Club, or of the beginnings of Code Club, which led to me saying, hey, let's make a microschool. And I actually did get 7 of my friends to pull their kids out of school and send them to my house every day for their actual education. And we did all of these subjects and learned a ton together and really built the model. This was back in 2018, and now we have grown and we've got lots of people participating and continue to just get better at delivering the type of environment where a kid will decide to become a learner, and they'll get the skills and equipment and habits and resources that they need to be a learner for life. I probably talked too much, but that's the background and the story. And Rochelle, I'll go back to you now.
That's awesome. I love it. Thank you. Kaylin, do you have any questions that need to be answered right now before
No, there was one person who said they were going to save their questions for the end, and I'm sure there's more than one that would feel the same way. So yeah, let's keep going.
Okay, perfect. So I'm going to kind of like jump back and forth between sort of the slide and my face, because I feel disconnected when I can't see you guys. So maybe if I can see me, I can connect to you. So I'm going to talk about the Prenda model. We at Prenda, we have 3 modes of learning. So every day when a kid comes, there will be 3 parts to their day: conquer, collaborate, and create. I love how these all work, and I'm going to walk you through each of them and tell you some stories that I've, experiences I've had with kids and the way it works. So the first thing is conquer, and we call it that because it's the part of the day that you just got to get done. It's math, reading, writing, and grammar. For a lot of kids, especially in traditional settings, these are not the reasons they go to school. When you ask kids what their favorite thing is, I have a son that goes to a school that has a 4-day week, and I asked him what his favorite part of school is, and he said, not going to school on Fridays. And I'm like, when not going to school is your favorite part of school, there might be a problem with what's going on. So what you're seeing here on the screen is we have 2 different ways that we do our model. And one is a K2 version, kindergarten through 2nd grade. That's what you're seeing on the left. And the other is 3rd through 8th grade. That's what you're seeing on the right. But I want to talk about the principles of Conquer before I get into that. And so the principles of Conquer are, I feel like my video isn't working. Hang on. Sorry. I'm really bad at well, we're just going to stick with the slide. I can't see me. I can see you, Kelly, but I can't see me. I'm really bad at technology, just so you all know. You'll
But
find
really
that.
bad
We're done here.
is a fixed mindset, Rochelle. You just haven't learned it yet.
I am learning technology, and this is my first time on a Google Hangout. So I'm feeling a little bit, whatever. Anyway, let me tell you about Conquer. So Conquer mode is all about individualized learning. So let me give an example. So I substituted a classroom shortly after I started working with Prenda. I substituted a classroom for a woman who was a guide that needed him to take a maternity leave. And so I spent 6 weeks with this group of boys that ended up growing, and they ended up adding a couple of girls, one of which was my daughter. And I just want to give you an example of what I talk about in individualized learning. So on the right, you see Khan Academy. That's what we use for math in 3rd to 8th grade. And it's one of the tools that allows us to provide individualized learning. So all of the principles of Conquer, individualized learning, working to mastery, and being able to be in a place where you're setting goals and achieving those goals every day. Those are kind of the 3 big parts of Conquer. And as you look at adulthood, like those matter a lot. So let me speak specifically about mastery. It's this idea that, and I was a math teacher, and so as I taught high school geometry and I saw kids struggle, I realized that the struggle rarely came from a geometry concept. It generally came from a gap that came from 4th, 5th, or 6th grade math and didn't allow them to compute quickly enough to stay up with the class. And so that's one of the things I love about mastery learning and the software we use in a couple of different subjects, so that kids are not leaving themselves with gaps, so that all those gaps get filled and they're working exactly where they need to work. So in this classroom that I was talking about, I'm going to tell you about 3 boys. They're all 6th graders. One of them is named Riley, and he's a 6th grader, and he just toward the end of his 6th grade year, he finished 8th grade math. And it wasn't a challenge. Like that's how his brain works. It was amazing. In that same classroom, there's a kid named Mo who, when I started subbing, he was about 30% of 3rd grade math. And he was with all 5th and 6th graders, and they were all working at grade level except for him at that time. And he felt really dumb. He thought he was stupid. And as we started to talk and I talked to his mom, and found out that he had been in 2 educational environments that didn't emphasize academics at all. And so we talked, and I said to him, you haven't been given the tools to have these skills. By the adults in your life haven't given you the tools you need. This has nothing to do with your brain. And he listened, and he accepted that. And then over the next 13 weeks, he finished 3rd grade and finished 4th grade, and he's into 5th grade now and working in it over the summer. And he started taking, he was taking his computer home on the weekends and at night, and nobody was telling him to. And that's where I saw a lot of power in this. And then Sean, who's another kid that was in the class, has struggled with a learning disability, likely dyslexia. And in this same classroom was working in 2nd and 3rd grade writing and math. And so to put this group of boys together, and especially Sean, who, when he came in, with his permission, we had a conversation with the group and talked to the group about his brain and his struggles and his strengths and the things he needed. And I watched all of these other kids that were his peers embrace him and celebrate his successes in 2nd and 3rd grade. And like, I've never seen a situation that allows for something like that. So needless to say, Conquer is one of my favorite pieces. And in spite of the fact that it's individualized, it's the time of the day that the little kids are in their workbooks and using manipulatives and working at their own pace and exactly where they need to be. And the older kids are on their computers doing the same thing. It's a very beautiful collective of helping each other in that process. So that's the first part of the day. In our normal, yeah, go ahead.
You didn't mention that Mo is now known as the math addict.
Oh, math. Mo is known as a math addict, and when you ask Mo what his favorite subject is, he says math. So it's just.
I think that does capture. Conquer it's something you have to do. We are state funded, and we agree to learn math and English standards. So we look at this as we're going to learn what we need to learn, but at the same time, we can turn it into a game. We can get that feeling of exhilaration by overcoming these obstacles, and it's okay if we're not there yet, and we need to do it at our own pace. In some cases, you're going to go way ahead of what the state wants you to be at. In other cases, it's going to be behind that. But like the point is progress and moving forward. Caitlin, I think you were going to say something.
Yeah, I was just going to mention, there was one comment from Lisa that as you were talking about Conquer and some of the challenges we're trying to address, Rochelle, she said, it's not just in public schools, it's also seen in charter schools, private schools, and even in homeschool co-ops. It's an issue across the board. And she said, I agree with your points. There's also a question from Rain that you may want to answer now, or you may want to answer it later on in the presentation, but I just wanted to highlight it. Rain says, so this is like homeschool with more kids? And she said, curious to find out what is required in the adult teaching or guiding.
Okay, so we'll answer both of those. Let me answer the first one now and the second one a little bit later. When I do sort of my 30-second intro of what Prenda is, I say we establish microschools in informal settings like homes, where ideally we have 8 to 10 kids in a 3-grade range working together with an adult that loves them, supports them, and motivates them. So hopefully, so we feel like we've kind of, if you have a Venn diagram of homeschool, online school, traditional school, there's this sweet spot where there are positive things from every single one of those environments. And we feel like we've found the sweet spot in all of those other educational possibilities. So let me tell you about the next part of our day. I love what Kelly included about Conquer. I mean, it's one of the things that's super cool is watching kids in like creating a collaborative goal in Conquer and watching them work, like them knowing that their work goes toward the collective, like their individual work goes towards the collective. There's some really powerful stuff that we've found in that process. So in Collaborate.
Sorry, real quick. One question from Rain that is directly related to Conquer that you may want to answer now is she asked what amount of their school day is spent on the screen?
So it depends on the age. In the K2 model, my understanding is somewhere between 30 and 45 minutes. And in the 3rd through 8th, that is in a lot of ways depends on what they're doing that day. Kelly and I talk a lot about this. This is a question a lot of people have. Conquer is 90 to 120 minutes, generally speaking. And that in the 3rd through 8th is all on devices. We look at the computer as a beautiful tool to open up the world to kids. And so sometimes part of Collaborate is on computers and sometimes part of Create is on computers. Both of those situations, they're being used as tools for them to prepare themselves for that part of the day. Kelly, do you have anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think that the main thing to look at is the way the tool is used in addition to the tool, right? So if a computer's a tool, a pencil's a tool, a calculator's a tool, you can see a difference in a kid that's just like zoned out, like watching Netflix versus watch one of the kids, and you may get little glimpses of it in some of these videos, like, I don't know, but there's pieces that you'll see where, they're like writing a document in collaboration with another kid. So it's like, I'm sitting with this other person in person, but I'm writing my paragraph and they're writing their paragraph and we're giving feedback back and forth. You see some of these and it's like, oh, this doesn't feel like screen time. And then of course, Rochelle said for the younger kids, it really is like, let's write these letters on paper and let's make sure that we understand what 10 feels like, in blocks and abacuses and things like that. So a lot of the motor and kind of foundational stuff for the youngers. And then as they are ready for it, looking at a computer as a tool that an activity personalization in a way that we think is very healthy. And the kids one answer I've had to this question is they spend a lot less time on a computer than I do in my job. But that's not to say that's fine. Like the point is not to get them on the computer as much as possible. The point is to learn, and to the extent that a computer can be a tool, great. And there's lots of other tools. I mean, you'll see as you kind of engage with some of our materials that there's lots going on.
Awesome, thank you. So in Collaborate, in our younger, there's some overlap between our older kids and younger kids. One of those places is called time travel in the younger kids and exploration in the older kids. And they have so imagine in their classroom a map of the world, and potentially one of the United States, and a timeline. And all of Collaborate is student-led. That's one of my favorite things about Collaborate is they have a schedule and they're in charge of that day's activity. And so like if it's exploration or time travel that we're talking about, the kid will walk up to the map and point to a place on the map and point to a spot on the timeline, and collectively they will research that time and place in history. So it's sort of like Magic Treehouse style. I love that. That's one of the ways we do history. Some of our other collaborative activities are debate, Socratic discussion. We do math puzzles that are collective that are really fantastic, and then science projects. In our younger kids, some of those things are like going on a nature walk and bringing back a sample, a rock, a leaf, a bug, whatever it is that they bring back and they discuss as a group. So again, the principles are the same, whether it's our younger kids or older kids. This idea of learning to respect the person that's talking, learning to have an opinion, learning to share that opinion. We see so much value in teaching 3rd and 4th and 5th graders the skill of debate. The idea that in our very polarized world, kids would be able to see both sides of an argument, to stand in somebody else's shoes, has so much power. And we believe that brings a lot of ability to communicate and to have just clear relationships with people as they grow older. Like, these are the coolest part for me is, as I think about what school does, school is about, like, traditional school is about what you learn and then dump. I have a sister that's in her 2nd year of dental school, just finished, and she tells me about taking these classes and then intentionally sort of dumping the material to make, and I just think to myself, so much of what we do in school is we then dump, because it's not something that applies to our actual real life as young human beings or adults. And these are skills that will apply through every part of their life, through every relationship. And that's a really beautiful piece. As they're learning, they're also like becoming this more refined human being. And when I say refined, so one of the things we talk about, and I'm going to go ahead and talk about it here, is most people, and that initial question, that icebreaker question we asked of when was it in your life that you realized that school was not going to work for you or your child, like traditional models, and you needed to look for something else. Every person at some point, and it's really early, and adults especially, but kids with regards to education, things happen to them that are damaging and traumatic, and we end up putting armor to protect ourselves from in those places. So it might be around a specific subject. I would love to have Kelly talk about what his was around art. Do you want to share that, Kelly?
Yeah, I mean, I can just do the quick version. I have this memory from kindergarten where I vividly remember, like, it was early in the school year, and we're all coloring a paper, and I remember that my teacher coming over and just being like so tall above me, and I think she was a nice teacher, but this is the one day I remember, which was, she told me, "You're doing it wrong. Coloring the paper. I was coloring incorrectly," and it was this like moment where I felt very strongly that I didn't want to do the wrong thing. If I wanted to please this person and I wanted to like go by the system, and it, like, who knows what it did, but just it stuck with me to the point where ever after that, I'm sure I was less likely to take a risk or try anything that I might have felt proud of. Like, I just wanted to do it right, and not have that feedback.
Thank you. And that's what I'm talking about, where, like, so Kelly put some armor on around creativity. Think about the number of kids that math is just something that isn't in their wheelhouse, in their minds. And so at Prenda, the most important thing I think we do in the middle of all this really incredible way to learn is we allow kids to come into a space that's totally safe, and to take off that armor and to show up as the person that they are, exactly the person they are in exactly the place they are, and love and support them as that person in that place. And like, it gives me chills just in saying that, because I think about what would have happened for me had I had that as a kid, and through junior high and high school. So hopefully you can get a sense of that. So collaborate, so create, again, conquer, again, is that individual everyone working at exactly the place they need to at their pace. If they can move quickly, they have that chance. If they need more time, they have that chance. And then collaborate is coming together as a group. And then create is sort of like a really fun combination of the two. So in create, we have two different, so there's a lot of research that shows the benefits of project-based learning. And so all of create is project-based learning. And there's two. Again, we have our what they do in create for the younger kids and what we do in create for the older kids. And with the younger kids, they do things like studying artists and composers. One of my very favorite things they do in create is called Imagination Station, where they bring really basic household items like paper towel rolls, boxes, tape, pipe cleaners, etc. And they're given a prompt. So they're going to create something, but they're given a prompt. So one of my favorite ones is 100 rats have shown up in your house and you need to capture them without hurting them. And so they get to build something. And like, while thinking about, they're not just building for the sake of building, but they're building with a purpose. And I love that. And so in our older kids, we've created in our software this really amazing map of the world. So you can see that on the right, the Explorer Society headquarters, they're all explorers. They have an avatar and they have an all-terrain vehicle, and they go all over the world into this map in our software where there are different ecosystems. And they learn, and all of these projects span all the different subjects: history, writing, science. So my daughter recently was in the Great Barrier Reef ecosystem, studied the plants, animals, and corals, and then created a diorama with a partner about that and presented it to her class. So one of the other really cool things about both collaborate and create is the opportunities that it gives kids to present their work and learn to be comfortable in front of people, which again, one of those skill sets that will help them down the road. I love all of the things that we do in create. Sometimes they're doing their projects on their own. Sometimes they're doing them with a partner. They span multiple days often, and so they come back and work on that. And it's really cool because our 3rd through 8th, that whole span has the same, they go into the same map, and it's fun to see what a 3rd grader can do and what an 8th grader can do, and how they can expand that as they get older. I'm going to show you this really quick YouTube video. If there are any issues around this, let me know.
My kids love to learn. They hate busy work.
But a lot of his strengths don't come out strongly when in a typical classical classroom.
The teacher came to me halfway through the year and said, he needs to find another school. He's not keeping up with the curriculum. Our little friend down the street came over to play, and I asked him what school he went to, and he said Prenda.
We switched him over to Prenda and recognized almost immediately his confidence was building.
And I love Prenda because the project-based learning is tailored so well to kids that think outside the box. It's very kid-friendly, and it builds on their natural curiosity and desire to learn.
I think this just works on so many different levels. Education isn't just filling a bucket, it's lighting a fire. And I feel like with Prenda, it has really lit Mo's fire.
You can go at the pace you need to. You don't have to wait for other kids, or if you're behind in that one subject, you can just go at your speed.
And the kids are thriving. They love it, and they love learning again, which had kind of fallen by the wayside.
My favorite part is math.
My favorite thing is the projects.
The thing that he loves the most is debate.
My son loves math.
It's collaborative. He's talking with people. They're coming up with ideas.
They're just like so proud of themselves, and they just like really enjoy it. And the kids are more willing to, I think, listen to what they have to say and like have a conversation about that thing.
These boys in his group have just put their arms around him. They help him when he needs help.
Like, something's working if a kid is going to do work that they're not asked to do.
They eat it up. They love it.
Just if everybody would do this, I think education around would be completely turned upside down.
He's learning to self-govern, that he's in charge of his progress. He knows his progress and he's driven by that.
It was kind of a confidence booster. I mean, where he's like, no, I can do this. And he just read it and did it himself.
I've never seen anything like it. I've never seen anything that specifically meets a kid's needs exactly where they are all the time. And it feels like Prenda does that in a way that it blew my mind.
If they can keep that spark all through their years, just think of what they can accomplish. It's going to be amazing.
Could you guys see that? That all.
In this video, I'm going to go into more
Whoa,
detail.
whoa! I gotta
about-
stop that. Okay, so let's keep going with our. So I want to talk about how, like, what a microschool is. What does this look like? This is such a foreign concept with our. So again, it's in your own neighborhood. The school schedule. Yeah, go
Sorry,
ahead.
Rochelle, I think you're going to answer some of these questions here, I'm sure, shortly, but I just want to put them out there so that they're in your mind and everybody else's who might have the same question. So Lisa asks, is Prenda School daily? What are the hours, homework, grades/tests? Just curious. And then she also asks if you can still Prenda along with homeschooling as well.
Okay. So let's look at, this should answer most of that. So it's in person. Like we said, it's in an informal setting. Most of our classrooms are in homes. We have one in a community church, and there's a group that are going to be down in Sierra Vista. They have rented space. Really, they found really reasonable space in a mall, and they're our guides subleasing there. So there's a lot of opportunity for where these can happen. So in the K2 range, it's 15 to 16 hours in person. So most of those are going to be 4-hour days. And then they'll do 4 to 5 hours of educational work at home, whether majority at this age range we're hoping is reading, but also, any music, any sports, anything that is educational that you, as a parent, is acknowledged as educational. In 3rd through 8th, they're in-person hours. So most of our classrooms are 4 5-hour days. And then at home, depending on their grade level, they'll do another 6 to 8 hours of additional work that they then log as bonus hours. And the micro school itself, the guide and the parents are the ones that set that and decide where and when they meet. So like Kelly's class met at his house from 8 to 1, Monday through Thursday. And he lives close to a park, so they would go to the park 20 minutes every day. And so the class that I was subbing, the mom really, really wanted this for her child, and both parents were working. And so they volunteered their home and found a family friend to be the guide. And so the guide was in someone else's home, didn't have any of her own kids. So that there's a lot of different ways this can look. And they chose, and then they had an open house and brought kids from the neighborhood and created this classroom that became a very beautiful place for them to learn. Classroom size in both age ranges, the minimum is 5. We feel pretty strongly that we need that number of kids to really connect with each other. Our ideal for K2 is 6 to 8. We cap those classrooms at 8 kids, and we cap our 3rd through 8th at 10 kids. Ideally, it's 8 to 10. And then they get enough time. I mean, you think of student to adult ratio in traditional models, and you can see how beautiful this is, especially when the adult isn't needing to distribute content. Kelly, I'd love to have you talk about kind of your student that you spent a lot of time with and why that was available to you in that process.
There's a couple, but towards the end of the year, so we had one student from my neighborhood that had been struggling in math really since kindergarten. He's a 5th grader. Just a sweet kid. He's like really positive and happy, but clearly shaken when it, talk about some of the armor ideas that Rochelle was getting at earlier. I mean, I could actually see that with him, where just resistance to trying and taking risks, and that was getting in the way. And then you don't learn, and so then you feel, it's like this cycle, right? Because you don't try, you don't learn, and then you confirm to yourself that you're actually not capable of doing that. What was neat is my class, by this point, he came into our class late, probably March or something. So the other kids in my class had several months to sort of get used to this idea of owning their learning. They knew very clearly every day, like, this is my Conquer goal for math. This is my Conquer goal for English. They knew what to do when they get stuck. Like, I'm going to go off and, watch this video or ask another kid, or like, they knew their resources, and they basically could go without me. Now there's moments where each of them needs me for various things, often emotional coaching, right? They're just frustrated that day. But what that freed up was, by that point, they were so good at self-learning that the one kid that really, really needed it and just was stuck, I was able to spend a lot of time. I mean, up to like an hour of one-on-one every day with this child, and to see little bits of progress with him, and to see him kind of look around and see the confidence of the other kids in the room. It was gradual. I can't honestly say that we're there yet. We spent a couple months together, but he's planning on coming back, and we'll keep that process. Really what we're doing, again, going very back to the very beginning, is empowering learners. And if you've got in your head these reasons or these stories that are preventing you from trying, then you're never going to be a learner. So like we're really working on that much more than we're working on fractions and decimals and all the other things. And so that's what's great about it, is you get this opportunity as a guide, to really one-on-one work with them and provide that personalized, coaching and help that, people need that. They need that help. I'd say people deliberately, like, it's not just kids. I think all of us would benefit from being in a group of 8 to 10 motivated learners, right? And to be able to draw strength from each other and help each other out. But that's what we've put together for the kids, and it's really amazing to see it work.
Awesome. Thank you. I appreciate that. So let's see where we are. So I'm going to go ahead and punt this back. This is the last thing I'm going to say. I have never, I've never felt this strongly about a concept that I've come across in my life. And there's some things I'm a really passionate person. I have passion around things. But when I saw Prenda's potential in changing the trajectory of a human being's life, because so much of a kid's, so many of their hours are school, and so much of what they feel about themselves is determined by school. I've never seen anything like this. And it to me is there aren't words. I don't have words for how meaningful this is to me, and how much it matters to me that we invite as many kids as are willing to learn into our environments, and just let them figure out who they are and how incredible they are. So Kelly, I'm going to let you go ahead and go on.
Yeah, thanks, Rochelle. Kaylin, is there any like specific questions or comments that I should be talking to you right now? Basically what I'm hoping for is that you're at a point right now where you're like, let's get this going, and I want to walk you through the steps of how to do that.
Yeah, I think one thing that we could address, especially when you talk about guides, Rain asked if someone volunteers their home, what are the requirements for the home itself? So maybe as you're talking about what we need from guides, you could address that.
Yeah, great question. And of course, we've had to think about all of those things for guides and for students. So hopefully you're able to see the slides still. We've got this kind of 4-step thing. So the first thing we want you to do, if you are like, I'm in, sign me up, talk to us first, and we'll see if there's a Microschool nearby that we can just connect you up with that's looking for students. So that we do basically, well, it starts with a guide that wants to do it, and then those guides, if they have extra space. So there's going to be a few cases where somebody lives close enough to you and they're already like open, they've got a space. So just like start there. We can definitely answer that question. I would plan on that being pretty rare. I mean, oftentimes these things, there's not an infinite number of them, and they are hyper local. So the chances of them being right, convenient for you. So let's plan on not having that happen, but you should at least check. Does that make sense? Number one. But what we do is they say, let's not stop there. Like, let's go to number 2 and say, okay, how can we make this happen for us and our kids? And this is where we see, where I've had the most like satisfaction on the side of working with the adults here is there are parents out there that care a lot about their kids' education. Many of you have looked at homeschooling or explored, or signed up for different options or shopped around. There's a lot of that going on, especially in Arizona, but really it's a nationwide trend, and it's growing, where people want what's best for their kids. So get together with other parents, have these discussions. You're talking about it anyway when you go out to dinner with friends or whatever. this is a great opportunity to say, hey, our kids like each other, they hang out. What if we did, school together? What if we could put, and really at a minimum, it's like 3, I mean, you could maybe, if you have enough kids, even do 2 families where you could put enough together to get the 5-kid minimum. But, say it's 3 families, right? That's not impossible for you to find out of your own connections and get together and say, hey, this is what I'd like to do for my daughter or son, and what do you guys think about it? And you'd be surprised, there's a lot of people out there that are interested, and we can give you the resources, the video and the link and things that they can learn about how it works. Now, number 3 is where, rubber meets the road, right? We need a space and we need a guide. So the hope is that out of the 3 of you now that are the 3 families that are talking about this, that somebody says, hey, you know what? I care about this enough that I want to be the guide. I want to do it. And we can use, my house or my, space in my office or studio. We've had people that do music lessons part-time, and then they use the space for Prenda, or you could do like a theater, like a performing arts. There's lots of different types of spaces. It just needs to be a space where kids can be comfortable and they can have an internet connection for those times where we use the software. And then once that's done, there's a process that we'll go through. You asked about, what kind of space. We have a home affidavit kind of thing where we just make sure the space meets the criteria. We do also a step where you'll get liability insurance for the home. And then there's basic, screening on the guides. We want to make sure that you're obviously going to be a safe person to trust with kids. So we're looking at background and fingerprint cards and things like that. And then the third thing we'll put in is internet safety, as we want to make sure that we're protecting the kids as they're working on computers. So we can walk you through all of that. We've done that now many times. So that's just a process that we would guide you through. And then once you're ready, we enroll the students and get started. So that's, sometimes your own kids and your friends' kids. But then what we'll find is even if you start out with 5 or 6, parents talk, and pretty soon by the end of the school year, you've got 10. Okay, so at this point, hopefully somebody's out there thinking, hey, maybe I could be a guide, and I hope you are thinking that. It's truly rewarding, fun work. I have a whole career in technology and science. I studied nuclear physics. I've built a software company. I've done all these interesting things. Nothing even compares in terms of career satisfaction and impact to this idea of being able to help someone, and not just help them with fractions, but to help them see themselves in a way that will empower them for their life. So, really we're finding the people that come and say, I want to be a guide, they're driven very powerfully by this idea of, I can really make a difference. I can help alter the trajectory. I mean, I have moments, especially the harder days, where I have to picture myself at the wedding reception of this child that's being difficult today. And I'll say, there's going to be a day where I can see this kid and they've grown up and they're on this great path. And that for some reason, wedding reception is like my moment. Obviously maybe I could have said college graduation or something. Earn some side income. So in addition, obviously this is your time. And in some cases it's your house too. So we definitely are cognizant of this. We're working in Arizona. We work through charter partners. So it's free to the families that enroll. The funding is there, and that supports you to get paid up to $30 an hour for a full class. Sometimes even a little bit more than that, to make some money. And it's not going to be, quit your job as a management consultant. But if you're looking for a way to make some money during the hours that your kids are at school, by definition, these are the hours that your kids are at school, then this can work really well for people. It can be a very convenient way to just earn some side income. And that's, it can be nice. And then the other thing that I think has really been a surprise for me as I've done it is it's this connection to your community. I think too many of us live kind of in isolation. This is a way to sort of put out there and say, hey, almost like the way going to a park is like, the kids are so good at just breaking down any sort of social barriers, and then you meet new people and you feel more plugged in. It's the same thing there with the Prenda Microschool, is like you just feel this connection because you're doing something that matters in the community, and like-minded people sort of come to the surface, and you get to have these new friends and connections that can be valuable. Probably, I don't know if that makes sense. Probably sounding cheesy. And then people will often ask, well, can I even do this? we don't screen the way a teacher would be screened in a traditional setting. So you don't need a certificate. You don't need a specific set of, academic credentials or something else. The idea is you've got to be the type of person that, one, loves kids, and two, is a learner, right? You need to see yourself as a learner. We'll give you everything you need to be able to do this well. If you come into it with this, like I've got this system and I know this works and I'm going to do it this way, that's not a great fit. I mean, we really want to give you the tools and resources that can do. Now, that said, there's lots of flexibility, and we want you to step in and help create your microschool the way that will work for you and your kids. But I guess the point is, you don't have to be like a content expert. If you come in excited to give a lot of lectures about microbiology, this is probably not a good fit. I would go to a community college and be a professor there. Like, this really has to be about the kids that you serve and making these impacts, helping them see themselves differently in a way that will support them through their life. So if that makes sense, become a guide. We'd love to have you. I've been so impressed with the guides. I say I was the first guide, but I think I was also the worst guide. It's not natural for me to just be, I don't know. I do love the kids, but I've seen what's been amazing is to see people that are more organized, more like high energy all the time, that have been able to do really a better job than I have at running this. And I hope that you listening are one of those people, and you can step up and do something amazing for your own children, but also other kids in your community. So that's it. Build Something Awesome is a cheer that we used to do back in the Code Club days, and hopefully you'll choose to build something awesome right in your community with the Microschool.
Awesome. Kelly, maybe we could answer some questions at the end here. Does that work?
Absolutely.
Kelly and or Rochelle?
Yeah, Rochelle, you can turn off your screen share. There's you just click on the, there you go.
Yep. There's your face. Yay. Okay, so you may have covered most of this. There's a question about asking what's required for the guide. Another person, the same person, Rain, asked, we have a group but no space or guide. And then the third question from that same person is, once we have it going, are we allowed to be exclusive on deciding who gets to attend?
You want to start with that, Rochelle?
Yeah, so as far as like having kids, we're putting together a toolkit specifically for parents who are looking for a guide, some things that will help find a guide, just kind of like, I guess, just helping you understand the kind of person who may already be in your existing network that you're not thinking about, kind of giving you a checklist of, do you know anyone that this, or this, and that might spark something for you. So as far as that goes, and then also there are guides, sometimes guides who don't have a space or kits. We're creating toolkits both directions there. And then as far as exclusivity, we want everybody that works together in Prenda to be comfortable working together. We'll never force a child into a microschool or force a microschool to take a child. We would love to have that exclusivity be around principles that make sense. Kelly, what else do you want to add to that?
Exclusivity is the wrong word, right? Everyone's invited and has to be by law, but also like it's very philosophical for us. Like, we want to make sure there's room for everyone in here. I would just say that what happens is, the group kind of forms, says we want to do this, and then they find the guide and kind of make it happen. So in that situation, like Rochelle's talking about, we're not going to inject a person in. But so our inclusiveness is really all about just opening up more and more of these, as many as we can. So as we get more and more people that want to participate, we'll help them and work through the steps of creating a new microschool. So as opposed to like, I know some people are like, oh, it'd be weird if like it's all of the second graders from my street, and then there's this like sixth grader that wants to come. Like, don't picture that. Like, that would never be the case, right? So if you're looking for people, we can help you with it and support those introductions.
So as a follow-up to that, Lisa was asking, is third to eighth grouped as one large group? So maybe talk about how you group them.
Yeah, K2, and that's kind of one model, and then third through fifth and then 6th through 8th. And then we'll see people kind of mix and match a little bit depending on their family needs and things like that, like who's in their community. But yeah, that's roughly the split.
And there's flexibility with that where there needs to be.
It's fun as they get a little older, those junior high ages, they're able to engage, especially once they've embraced this idea of being a learner. They're able to do things that a 3rd or 4th grader, couldn't do. And I'm trying to think of examples like starting a business, or like engaging with, like arranging an internship with a job that they really want to learn about. And some of those things that in that level of flexibility, you wouldn't necessarily want like a 3rd grader going off to a workplace, but as they like 7th and 8th grade, they're now old enough to sort of arrange that and make it happen. So.
Awesome. Let's see. I answered some of the questions via the chat. So here's one that Holistic Mama asks. She says, sounds like she's interested in signing her son up and possibly being a guide, but how would I go about having my boys who are years apart in this school? One is almost in kindergarten, the other one is going into 3rd grade.
Michelle?
So there's a, in a situation like that, if it needs to be both, like we said, there's some flexibility in that span. There's some challenges to expansion. So one would be to choose an age group that she's the guide over, and then seek kids that will meet, whichever age range she's more interested in, and then potentially find another guide to do the other age. So again, there's some flexibility there. If it was, I want to have both my kids, I always say that if you go outside of that 3 grade range, there are pros and cons. It's not all cons. Some of the pros are mentoring that happens differently than would happen inside of a 3 grade range. And generally the cons are more work for the guide. It's just more need to be able to be organized and resourceful as a guide. Anything to add to that, Kelly?
No, I think that's right. You can do it. I think the best would be to go get your friends and be like, hey, we're going to have a 3 through 5 and a K through 2. And, you run one, get someone else that you love to do the other one. It's like the first time in the history of the world where you get to choose the teacher, right? Like not just choose them, but like, you're going to like convince them to be the teacher and then like help them get set up. So yeah, I think there's a lot of power there as you start thinking about the people that you know and who would be interested in this. We have some of our really more active people are like going into former teachers, like they go find their favorite teacher that has ever taught their children and convince them like, hey, you're close to retirement, just come and open it. I mean, there's like lots of different ways, but a good piano teacher, a good soccer coach, like people who are able to help kids be the best version of themselves and do that in a positive way. So that's the type of skill set. And yeah, as you start thinking about who do I know that I would just hands down like trust with my kids.
I think that is question number 1. Who would I trust with my kids? I think when you're thinking about looking for a guide in your network, that to me, that's the question that matters the most.
And there's like 2 layers of trust. Like one is like, they're not going to hurt my kids. I have a list of those people. And then it's like, the people, some subset of that list is like people who like, if my kid spends time around this person, I believe that they will be a better human being, right? Like this person will bring my child to a level of just open up doors for them. And that's that mentorship kind of coaching, guiding aspect. Okay, well, we've used up an hour. Is there, we can definitely follow up if anybody has questions afterwards. What do you think, Kaylin? Should we wrap it up?
Yeah, I think so. I think the last thing that there's definitely a few questions and comments here that sound like maybe let's give them a next step of, how should they contact us? What's the best way for them to get in touch with us so we can take next steps?
So let's just cut to the chase. I'm going to give you my email address and phone number, and you can contact me if you've been on here. So it's Rachelle, RACHELLE at Prenda.co, C-O. And then my phone number is 480-414-7073. So if you have questions, interest, you're ready to go, whatever that is, if you're not quite there yet, if you're not ready for a conversation with me, prendaschool.com has a lot of information there. And if you fill in the student, like you're interested in your student signing up, that'll give us your information and we'll be in touch with you.
Awesome. I just also pasted both of those in the chat, so so everybody can see that. Thanks everybody for your time. Definitely happy to continue the conversation. Like Rochelle said, we'll keep talking as you contact us and have questions. We have folks that are talking to moms and parents every day, answering questions like these. So we're happy to help you understand more and clear up your concerns so that you can see. So hopefully this can be something valuable for your kids and the people that you know and love. So that's it. We'll sign off with that, and yeah, see you soon. Thanks everyone.
Thanks.